Is Jared on?
He's not on yet.
I got the microphone on.
Good evening. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting of the Linden Board of Education to order. Once again, we are required to adhere to emergency order requirements of face masks and the Open Meetings Act requirements, including social distancing of individuals remaining at least 6 feet from anyone outside the individual's household. We do have the overflow area in the high school senior commons where the meeting will be streamed on the TV located there if we need extra space exceeding the capacity of this room. The Open Meetings Act also authorizes school boards to conduct hybrid in-person and electronic meetings to accommodate board members who will be absent due to military duty, medical conditions, or a declaration of local state of emergency or disaster affecting that area where they reside. Any board member who doesn't meet the conditions will be physically present at the meeting to participate. If you do plan on making a public comment this evening, please complete a card and give it to Mrs. Callard, our recording secretary, if you're present in person, or sign up digitally on the link that's been provided on the website. We do have public also participating in the meeting via the Zoom platform remotely. At this time, I request that everyone silence cell phones and remove any headsets as we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I request that Mrs. Keller conduct a roll call.
I'm sorry, Haney,
Present?
Losi, Luck,
Present.
Montague, Murphy,
Present.
Shayna,
Present.
and Maker.
Present. And just for the record, Mr. Montague's trying to connect remotely, but he's having some connectivity issues, and Mr. Losi is unable to attend for a personal reasons this evening. At this time, I need a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved. Support.
It's been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda as presented. Roll call vote, Mrs. Kelly.
Haney,
Yes.
Luck,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Shayna,
Yes.
and Maker.
Yes. First item is the superintendent report, Russ.
Thank you, Mr. Maker, and welcome everybody in person and in virtual land. Appreciate everybody chiming in this evening. I do have a couple updates. First of all, why the different types of a hybrid, if you will, board meeting. So just a quick clarification on that. On April 12th, the city of Linden reissued a state of emergency. Since our board meetings are held outside of the city limits, we are still able to have an in-person meeting. With that, and under the Open Meetings Act, there is language that if a member or members of the board lives within the area impacted by the state of emergency, they can participate virtually. And if that board member chooses to participate virtually, we do open up the meeting in a virtual format to include public participation virtually as well. Hence the reason that we have the Zoom open. And over the last 3 meetings, we have live streamed for those individuals that want to view our board meetings. And we'll continue as it'll almost be a board meeting to board meeting decision based on different rules and guidelines that are put in front of us. So I appreciate everybody's patience as we move forward. Just an update on face masks. On April 16th, the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services issued a new order that expands face mask requirements in good faith effort for children ages 2 and up. The general mask mandate now applies to children ages 2 and over instead of 5 and up like before, meaning that younger children will be expected to wear a face mask while attending Argentine Early Childhood Center. The mask mandate does begin on Monday, April 26th. And again, there is an exemption that if a child is medically unable to wear a mask, if that is the case, they do need to contact Mrs. Westervelt at the Early Childhood Center. In regards to student athletic testing, we'll present some data tonight as we go through our reconfirmation. But the current MDHHS order on testing for organized athletics has been extended until May 24th of 2021. As before, Linden High School and Linden Middle School, they test on Monday mornings. Later this evening, you'll see some of those results. In other athletic news, for the 2021-22 school year, the MHSAA is requiring all students who participate in MHSAA sanctioned sports to have a valid physical examination completed on or after April 15th of 2021. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the MHSAA did not require an updated physical for 2020-2021 as long as the student participant had a valid one from the 1920 school year, and that was on file with the school. Some more athletic news. Due to quarantine issues and the way the winter season went with indoor practices and competitions, the decision has been made that as a district, we will not be allowing indoor practices moving forward for the spring season. I know this may cause some headaches, but we would rather lose 1 or 2 days of practice due to inclement weather rather than 14 days due to the whole team being quarantined because of a positive situation. In the winter season, we went back and forth with the health department regarding teams being spaced out in gyms, and regardless of what we provided, whole teams were knocked out at a time. If we are only practicing outdoors, it will hopefully eliminate any major quarantining issues in what I could call a blanket policy as far as quarantining the whole team for a positive individual. If that happens, or if it continues to happen at that level, we will reevaluate the situation at that time. And then academic awards. The annual LCS Board of Education Academic Awards are scheduled for May 5th, 2021. At this time, we are looking to reschedule the academic awards. Mr. Dretzky, Mr. Gates, and the high school continue to work through a lot of different scenarios in hopes of conducting an in-person awards ceremony. I do apologize for the inconvenience, but logistically, there are a lot of hurdles to jump over given the restrictions that we're under. We'll continue to provide additional information in the very near future to board members and Linden High School students and families. And with that, Mr. Maker, I'm done.
Thanks, Russ. Appreciate the update. There's no special presentations this evening, but we do have administrative updates from the high school, starting with Mr. Dresky. Derek?
I will go ahead and share the Zoom screen here. Yeah, just hit that button in the middle. Should turn red. Is it blinking?
Blinking.
Okay, just give it a minute. It's got to reconnect to the Wi-Fi.
Thank you. I appreciate it. This is kind of a novelty the last, year and a half. You know, we've been trying to sit through these things via Zooms and things, so it's kind of nice to be back, at least in some type of an in-person format. So I'm going to provide a little bit of, this is, where did that go? All right, all the way to the top. We got it all together. So a couple things, just to start out with, the last couple of years, really proud of that situation. 2019, 2020, the U.S. News World, we were recognized as, you know, a best of the best high school. Some of the metrics that they look at: college career readiness, college curriculum, math, and reading proficiency and graduation rate. So the last couple of years,
You know, we've obviously looked at that, and our staff has done a good job to be recognized as, you know, by the U.S. News and World Report. My presentation here is a little bit different. In years past, we've kind of looked at some comparative data and gone through some of those things. I do have some data in there, but considering the situation that we were in last year, you know, we didn't have any SAT, MME, PSAT testing last year. You know, so I did throw in some, we did have AP testing last year. I thought that you'd like to see some of those results with, you know, with what our AP kids did last year, which was pretty striking, really. Give you an update on what's going on this year with AP testing. You know, give you a glance at the high school with students and staff, more personalized than in years past. You know, kind of give you an update of what we did. We're still in the midst of our 2001 spring standardized testing cycle now. The initial phase we're done last week. We're in with some accommodated testing makeups, and then next week we start our makeup days for those kids that may have missed the initial day due to quarantine and things of that nature. And then I'll look at some things moving forward. So to begin with, it's kind of hard to see a little bit here, but a couple things that jumped out at me looking at that. On the far end, it's kind of covered up by some of the icons on the right-hand side there. Our overall percentage of students, AP students that took the AP exams last year was 74% of them scored a 3 or higher, which I thought was pretty significant. When you look at some of the other information there that kind of jumped out at me with that data, were the average scores on all of the exams. So if we look at all of our average scores across the board, they were at or near 3, which I thought was pretty statistically significant. The 74% far right corner there, total exams, bottom right hand corner, all of our kids, you know, 74% of them scored 3 or higher on those AP exams. To get a little bit more specific, I think all of our AP kids and our teachers deserve some kudos, but specifically looking at the numbers there, if you look at English, 86% of them scored a 3 or higher with an average of 3.7. You know, 86% of our Spanish kids that took the exam averaged a 3.6. And then you look at the stats kids, 94% of them scored a 3 or above, and the average score was a 3.9. You know, so I thought that was pretty significant. We've got our AP stat teacher here tonight, so I appreciate that. Kudos to him and what he does in the classroom with those kids. Those are pretty significant scores. This coming year with our AP kids, before we get there, and also in years past, we've broken it down as far as AP scholars, AP scholar with distinction, AP scholar with honors. We had 29 kids with the AP scholar designation, 7 with the honors or AP scholar with distinction, and 5 with AP scholars with honors. And what that basically breaks down, AP scholar is a student that receives a score of 3 or higher on 3 or more AP exams. An AP scholar with distinction is a student that averages at least a 3.5 on all the AP exams taken with scores of 3 or higher, and they take 5 or more of those exams. And then AP scholar with honor are students that average a 3.25 on all their AP exams with a 3 or higher on at least 4. So I think we've got a collection of those students that took those exams that really, really excelled as well. Moving forward for this year, our AP committee, most of our AP teachers, we had met and discussed what to do. We had an option of providing that in person. They're all online. And we discussed, okay, do we want it? Is it better for our kids to take that exam here with us at our high school? And initially that was a yes. You know, obviously that's something that we wanted to do. And collectively, I don't know what the county was doing, but at this point, with some of the metrics and things that we're doing in the online kids, you know, we further discussed that and what is the best for those kids to actually take that exam. You know, collectively, we come to that decision that we're going to have them take it at home, not at school, for the simple fact that we don't want them to be quarantined and not be able to come in and take that exam. I mean, some of those metrics and some of those things that we have to deal with, is it the best situation? No, but we would rather have them take that AP exam than not take it at all. You know, so we made that decision, and some of those things that, you know, as you go through that on those designated days, those are the time slots For example, English, May 18th, those exams are going to be administered from 12 to 3. So those are all going to be administered online in an online format, and they're all going to take them from home as opposed to here in the building, which I think in a best case situation, yes, we want them here in the building just for their own people proctoring those exams. But to give it a fair shot, we certainly didn't want to put people in a position to where they didn't have an opportunity to take it if they wanted to take it. Mrs. Kelly's going to send out some communication to all of those AP students and their parents tomorrow, clarifying some of that information, providing them with those dates, and getting that process rolling. What I really wanted to hit on here is the next several slides. It's just kind of focusing on our students. That kind of gives you a breakdown of what we're looking at, what we have here at the high school, 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th, and 12th. Our 12th grade class is probably one of the biggest that we've had come through here. I started here in 2000, 2001. We had a class a year or two ago that was a little bit bigger. This is the, and then you look at the other numbers coming down that are going to kind of shrink a little bit, but level out. This is our second biggest class that we've had since I've been here at Linden. 252 kids. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll see the Linden Virtual School, the numbers that we have, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th. That we had to navigate a total of 212 students that took that option of being 100% virtual. So that looks like you're taking a whole grade level out of our building. So it did create nothing that we couldn't handle. Our counseling staff is fantastic as far as that. Our teachers have stepped up to being online teachers, and they've really done a great job. But that's a pretty significant percentage there, with 23% of our total building in that 100% virtual format. There's pros and cons to that. Obviously, it provides those students, and rightfully so, with the opportunity to continue to be a Linden High School student. But there has been some bumps in the road, that roller coaster, so to speak, of two-way interactions and all of those things that we're obligated to do to provide, and we're mandated to do. So, we made it work, and I'm glad to have that opportunity. Our staff kind of breaks down in this format here to the point of, we've got roughly 41 professional teachers in the middle there, all of our departments, 3 counselors, Mrs. Armour, Mrs. Kelly, Mrs. Day, new social worker, Diane Dorr, who really has come on and acclimated herself well. You would have think that she's been here for years. She's done a fantastic job. Lori Gerard, our school psychologist. We've got 2 SROs, Officer Engel and Officer Beluski. Our athletic department, we've retooled that with Mr. Belil, who you've met, and Mary Berry, the new athletic secretary. I've got some additional information on Mary here in a moment, because some of our folks in the building have really stepped up this year. Deb Brindle and Michelle Lubat in the Community Ed Food Service Department. Our kitchen staff, we've had consistently 2 to 3 kitchen staff all year long that have done a fantastic job. Our custodial crew, Christy and Lisa especially, they're first shift custodians. Without them, I don't know where Mike and I would be, quite honestly, with all the things that were going on and mitigation strategies, and they've really kept us, our heads above water. So I appreciate the job that they've done as well. These are some of the folks here that I wanted to give at least, publicly some kudos, and behind the scenes we pat them on the back, give them kudos all day long. But this year, as much as we'd like to be back in school, it has been, as you guys well know, a roller coaster. From hybrid to remote to multimodality, to quarantines, to whether it be staff, whether it be students. These folks here have really gone above and beyond for us. Up in the upper right-hand corner, left-hand corner, Sarah James, who normally is a parapro. Due to one of our professional staff members, it was teaching remotely from home. Sarah stepped up for months to be the teacher facilitator in that classroom, did a fantastic job for us there. Mary Berry in the middle there, top right next to Sarah on the right-hand side. Prior to her matriculating into the athletic department as a secretary, she did a long-term sub position for us for one of our staff members that was on maternity leave. So before that, she was in here for 12 weeks to help out. Liz Federico, who normally, next to Mary, in the orange-colored shirt there, she normally handles our multi-purpose academic center. And I pulled her in 1,000 different directions this year. She's been in the media center, she's been in the MAC, she is a fluent Spanish speaker, again, another one of our staff members. Is our Spanish teacher when on maternity leave. Liz stepped in and was a long-term sub in there to keep that going. Can't say enough about that. Mary Schultro, far right-hand corner, another parapro that's normally working with our CI classrooms, has done a fantastic job in our media center. With working with Chris and his crew and Alan Kissel and Chromebooks and everything else that we got going on here from textbooks. Working our way down underneath Mary is Carrie North, another parapro that normally works in the CI room that we've had to throw into a variety of different roles. Heather Pinnell in the lower right-hand corner, or Fuller, excuse me. Normally our EDP coordinator, but we had a front office quarantine here not too long ago with our entire front office being quarantined. Heather stepped up and she was that point person in the main office until we got back. Moving across there, Cheryl Elmer, she stepped up, doing a 6 to help us out in our math department. Above her is Robin Hollifield, another parapro that we pulled in 10 different directions as well, in a variety of different positions outside of their normal daily responsibilities. So those folks, I take my hat off to them. They have really helped our building out tremendously, our kids out tremendously. And one that I didn't have a photograph of, it's first name up there, Jennifer Marinelli. She is our building level sub. We've had her for a few months. She comes in every day, doesn't really know where she's going to be. She may be subbing for, 6 different classes in that day. She may be in a classroom with one teacher, and she's really helped out with the state testing and being a proctor. So those folks there have really helped us out tremendously with what we've done and what we've had to deal with this year. Another area that we had to readjust moving forward. Normally we're able to get by with 2 lunch periods. We split it in half. We've got an A and a B lunch. And when we went back to that multimodality, just to make sure that we're providing enough room with those different modalities and areas that to social distancing as best we can, we added another lunch. And it really, we made it work. But I give these folks kudos as well because they have stepped up, whether it be monitoring. Robin Durant and Jay Kirky are professional staff members out for us. They're monitoring one of those lunches. Corey Mason, Ken Engel there, Lori Gerard, Michelle Luban in the middle, Tanya Armour, Deb Brindle, and Angie Kelly. There are days where we're running 100, 125 kids in one lunch. We've got a minute in between. And everybody's grabbing something to wipe tables down to disinfect before the next group comes in. And without these folks here, again, what we do day in and day out and how we function wouldn't be possible. So those folks deserve all the credit in the world for what they've done for our building, for our staff, and for our kids all year long. Just to give you some moving on here, moving with our spring testing that we conducted. The initial testing window was last week with the SAT on April 13th. We also did 4 MI Access kids on that same day. ACT work keys for juniors was April 14th. MSTEP 15th, and we tested the 9th and 10th graders with the PSAT 9 and 10 on Friday the 16th. The bold there are the number of students that we tested on each one of those days in the initial window. Yes, it is lower than our total population of students in every grade level. One of the things that with the MDE and their recommendations, especially with 100% online students, is that they did not require them to come in and test. Their justification was that they chose to be 100% online students. They didn't think it was their place to make them or force them to come back and test. So a lot of those numbers we had out of our junior class, we had 46 online kids, 100% online kids. And on various days, we may have had 3 or 4 kids testing in the SAT. We may have had 2 or 3 the next day with the ACT. And we may have 2 or 3 the next day with the ACT work keys. That also factors in some of those students that now we're continuing to bubble, and conduct those pre-administration activities so they're ready for next week's makeup for the SAT, ACT, and the M-STEP next week. So we will recapture some of those students that we didn't have because they were on quarantine. And we do have some contingency dates as well, because I have spoken to one parent that the unfortunate part for their student was that they were not there on the initial test day. They are currently quarantined. They will miss the makeup day. And now we're looking at no contingency dates for that student to make it up, so they have an opportunity to test this year as well. So it is a lot more drawn out than in years past. One of the things one of the caveats that we've always had to do is maintain a, kind of a 95% threshold of test takers, especially with our junior class. The MDE waived that as well, so that's why I think we see a little bit lower number than we have in years past. Moving forward, some of the things that we're looking at moving forward and looking at as far as the 5D, the teacher evaluation. Last year, obviously with the shutdown, we weren't able to do much of anything there. We've had to scale it back this year, to what our normal capacity was. So we want, obviously, in addition with an additional administrative person we've had trained in 5D. We'll have some more support there that we can mix Lance into that process as well, and really refocus on that teacher growth piece. I'm not going to say too much about the PBIs and SOAR. Mr. Gates will hit on that a little bit more in depth during his presentation, but prior to the shutdown, I thought that our PBIs and our SOAR program was going very, very well. Again, with the shutdown of what Tanya Armour and some of the PBIS team has done, they've tried to keep that going in a virtual format. When we're on the hybrid, we're on the remote. We're trying to do the same things, but again, it's just not the same as when you have every kid in here and we're doing the same thing. So we want to refocus our efforts on that. Looking at curriculum, some of our elective courses, we went back to the semester, kind of limit us a little bit with our elective offerings for our students. And I'll use our social studies department as an example, and I've talked to a variety of them. Just rethinking the way in which we offer electives to give our kids more of an opportunity to take a variety of classes. For example, the science class, I said social studies, I meant science. Next year, they're going to offer an inventions class, as a pilot, to give our kids a different look than a traditional. So they may go on a rotation with their elective courses. One year, they're going to offer these during this semester and these during the next semester, and then kind of alternate that. Give our kids a little bit more variety of elective courses that they have to choose from than we currently do now. So just increasing those types of things. We're looking forward to, and we're dreading at the same time, some of the impending campus remodeling issues and some of the logistical things that we're going to have to deal with as early as next year. With the bond passing and things like that, exciting times. But again, we're looking at things. We started conversations with Greg Videz and our administrative team here about the what ifs. When this starts, how are we going to do this? How are we going to ship these people and these students here? How are we going to get them in there? So, all of those types of things we're looking forward to, but then again, with a little bit of trepidation on how that's going to work out. Summer school, we've talked about, we've got the OdysseyWare platform. We've also had some conversations internally as well as at the principal level, whether it be 3-district or whether it be Flint Metro League, about what others are doing and if they're offering kind of an in-person option as well, to help with some of the issues that we may have had, because of the hand that we were dealt from an academic standpoint and going on a shutdown and then not being in a normal capacity. So we've got a couple things in the works for summer school. We're going to continue with our post-secondary opportunities with our GCI Early Middle College, Mott Middle College, Early Middle College, to look at what we can give to our students and the opportunities post-secondary. We do have some students that are part of the DEEP program right now as well. It doesn't seem for our students to be as popular as it is with the Mott and the GCI Early Middle College or just the traditional dual enrollment. But we'll continue pushing those things and providing those opportunities, for our students at that level. The Virtual Academy and OdysseyWare and some of the preliminary conversations that I've had with Mr. Young. about potentially where are we going to be at with our virtual academy, with our virtual moving forward, once we get past, what we're dealing with now. Are we looking at, what are we looking at from a high school standpoint? How many kids are we going to have virtually? How's that going to impact our staffing? I mean, all of those little things and those dominoes, and trying to get out in front of them as best we can and be as proactive as we can. And again, go back and relook our academy, our Learning Advancement Academy. For the past several years, we've got a long-term sub in there right now, Matt Day, who I think has done a fantastic job for us. But in years past, when we started that, it was staffed a little bit differently. With a couple of staff members with some specialties, a special ed teacher as well as a gen ed teacher, and really looking at that and having conversations with Mr. Gates. So not only are we providing those opportunities for our AP kids and our high-flying kids to those opportunities, or our post-secondary opportunities, but really narrowing in and focusing on those at-risk kids and those opportunities for them to get a Linden High School diploma. Again, focusing on college and career readiness. And some other things that I've talked to Mr. Young about is with the bond passing and potentially some of those things that may be starting as early as next year at lower levels. It's going to impact us here greatly with some of the changes that are coming to the high school's way with STEM and some of those opportunities. And again, to try to get out in front, be proactive, and plan for those things. So when those things get here and we're ready to go, then we have those opportunities here for our kids as well. The last thing I have on there is athletics. Again, I mentioned that with Lance and Mary down there. And thanks to Greg Durkat, his retirement in January did a great job for us. And I'm excited to have Lance down there, Mary down there so far. And Russ hit on a little bit earlier about the spring sport testing, the COVID testing. Lance and Mary have done a fantastic job with that. We're able to run through. You guys get the updates on how many kids were running through there every Monday morning. Just the way that it was organized and as efficient as it, I think Lance has done a good job. I'm looking for big things for him in that department in the future. So with that, I thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'd be happy.
Do we have any questions, Mr. Haney?
I have none.
Mrs. Luff?
Yeah, just one thing, Darren, with regard to the AP testing, and I honestly have no idea how it's going to be administered online. I presume it'll be like a time situation. Is there any, do you know if there's any type of like browser lockdown software or anything that they're going to expect students to have?
That's a great question that I don't have the answer to. Maybe I can defer to my AP stat teacher, who's a brilliant man, that he may have the answer to that.
Yes, the answer is to that question. The kids, the teachers of the AP classes and the kids that are in AP classes have all the information that they'll need. There's going to be an app that they have to download onto a Chromebook. It will be timed test just like usual. There is a lockdown browser. To be honest, I'm still trying to wrap my head around some of the things, but all of us that are teaching those courses we know what's going to need to happen, and the kids will be prepared appropriately, and I mean, they'll know what they need to do.
Yeah, I guess I was just kind of wondering, should we offer an option for them to be here in a proctored situation in case they don't have the ability? I mean, I just know from personal experience, we're actually at my work, we're going through using new software too, and even the students there are struggling to take exams in some situations online. And so I guess I was just wondering, I definitely agree with the decision made to allow them to do it from home, but I'm just wondering if we should consider having an option for them to come to the high school as well if they choose to, just so that they feel more confident in the division.
Do you want me to?
No, it would be my guess.
I think the problem with that is that we either had to make a choice that the kids take it from home, or all of the kids take it from here at school. And I don't think we have the choice to have some here and some at home. And the risk with having them all here is that if they're quarantined, they can't come here, and then they can't take it at home either. So it's kind of an all or none situation, which is why we initially chose here because we thought that would be best. But once we realized what quarantines were starting to look like again, that could have been problematic. And especially, like for my students, they're taking it at the last possible day. So I don't even think there's going to be a makeup. So if my students miss, They just won't get to take it.
And I came right from the ISD. I mean, Clint is right as far as, take it here or at home. I mean, there wasn't a kind of
Yeah,
hybrid.
sure, I understand what you're saying. It seems odd that if they're offering the students to do it online, that they couldn't do it from anywhere, But I understand. That was the only question I had, and thank you for all the good information.
I know Mr. Montague has joined in now. Jared, do you have any questions for Mr. Dresky?
Now, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I'm late. I'm here on Zoom for a medical issue, which is coming to the end, so I look forward to joining you in person. Mr. Gresky, thanks for your presentation. I didn't see any materials ahead of time. Congratulations on the award. That's really awesome. And I also thank you for all the recognitions that you did, the personal recognitions. I think the story of the last 12 plus months is people stepping up in a really great way and trying to make the best of the situation. So it was really pleasant to see the way you recognize so many individuals, how they stepped up, and thank you for your leadership in that. Keep up the great work at Lynn High School. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Maker. Mr. Dresky, thank you very much for this year. Everything you've done to try and get us back to some sense of normalcy. You and your administrative team coming up with those options that we looked at a few weeks ago to get kids back into school more in a face-to-face environment. I know it probably hasn't been easy to deal with it, but sounds like it's going fairly well, I guess. I don't know if you have an opinion on that.
It's that proverbial roller coaster. I mean, there are times where, you walk in and you walk in and no problems, and there are other times where from the time you walk in or they walk into their classroom, you're going 1,000 miles an hour. I think I've been amazed, to be honest with you, and we've had our ups and downs, again, I mean, it's tough for us, it's tough for our staff, it's tough for our kids. When we started last year, it shut down, then we go to a hybrid, and then we go to, we got to shut it down again and go remote, and then we're back into a different thing. And I think our staff, I think our students have done a fantastic job. I've actually marveled at how well they have been adaptable, how resilient they've been. Our students day in and day out. Mike and I have talked about it, Lance, that with some of the building protocols we have in place and mask mandates and all those types of things, you envision, this is not going to go well. Our kids have been fantastic from day one. And I think that's a testament to how things have gone for us. Again, it's been that roller coaster, but our kids, I can't say enough on how good our student body is and how they've conducted themselves this year, as well as our staff.
Right. We ended up settling for option 11, and Mr. Lawhorn expressed some concerns about the dual modality of doing that, and with a significant percentage. At that time, thinking they were going to stay hybrid, 30% I think was the initial estimate of your in-population group, which is what, 700 kids or something like that. So that was going to be a couple hundred kids, and then we pushed forward anyways and brought it online. How many of those kids actually ended up, I know it's been dwindling, at least I think it's been dwindling, from starting in hybrid or saying they were going to hybrid, and actually, what's your hybrid number right now?
The 2-day modality student right now, the last number I gave you, we're sitting around 30 kids.
Okay.
Now, it's difficult to go back in because how many kids do we have quarantined right now? I mean, when we're talking about those kids, and to me personally, I love them. I've got kids that are quarantined for 14 days that aren't where they need to be.
Right.
And we've got an option that they can still get into a classroom and stay up as best they can. And again, I give our tech department, we went out and got some Bluetooth devices, our staff is using them in their classroom and really going above and beyond to provide those opportunities, whether it be 2-day kids or whether it be those kids that we have that are unfortunately no fault of their own quarantine because of COVID. Right. So to be honest with you, Steve, I really haven't gone back once we started this. Mm-hmm. I mean, for me personally, it was let's go. I'm not looking back to see where we're going here. We've had a couple of kids that started on that 2-day that have come back. But again, I can say if I go back and look at the numbers, just the amount of quarantines, we've lost a lot of days, and the kids have lost a lot of days of school just because they're on quarantine.
Speaking of the quarantine issue, what guidelines are we running on? Is it 3 foot, is that what triggers it now, or?
It depends on who you talk to. I believe the CDC's is 3 foot. We're still operating under the Genesee County toolkit, which is 6 feet.
Right.
Genesee County still abides by the 6
Mr.
foot.
Selsky, have they been looking to move off that at all? I mean, the CDC is saying 3 foot, and is it the health department sitting there going like, no, 6 foot?
And that is correct.
Come on.
The health department is aware of the 3 foot, and they're not moving from the 6 foot. No different than the 10 versus the 14-day quarantine. I think, actually, I believe the CDC recommends 7 days. And then a while back, when they went to 10 days, the Genesee County gave us the leeway to go 10 or 14, 10 to 14 days. Obviously, in Linden, we chose the 10-day. And then just as of April, I can't remember the date, was it March?
April.
Yeah, but in March, when they went to 14 days. Maybe it was April. Yeah, then that's when they bumped it to the 14 day.
Okay. So, and did I mishear something about the CDC? Did they do a report not too long ago where they said your chance of getting it from contact was 1 in 10,000?
They did release an article that indicated that your chances of getting from contact were very slim. I don't know what that number was.
I think
we're talking the same article. And to your point, Steve, the health department is aware of that. And at this point, even in our meeting, our last meeting with the health department, they are not looking to move from their current.
Has that allowed us to adjust our cleaning schedules at all, or are we still sticking to the same?
We're still sticking to the same cleaning schedule.
Okay, as usual. Okay, so in regards to technology, how are we dealing with the hybrid students? Do they sit at home and get the feed from the classroom? So they're virtually there?
I would say most, I don't know percentage-wise and how, I would say a majority of our staff are providing that option for them. You know, they have the option also of providing asynchronous activities as well. But I would say I was in probably 6 classrooms last week alone, and every single one of those teachers had their laptop right in front of them, and they were teaching a lesson, and they had kids sitting there watching them from home.
And I think that's a great option there. I know it's not, and I think it will improve over time as the technology gets a little bit better, as the staff gets a little more comfortable with working with it. They'll find ways to make it work more seamlessly than it probably does in the beginning. So that's good to hear. The reason I bring that up is I was kind of alarmed by Mr. Young's thoughts last meeting that we were going to look at forming some 3-district virtual school, it sounded like. And I thought, with technology being better and better in the classroom, why couldn't we just, I'd rather have Dr. George and Mr. Lawhorn teaching our kids than lose those kids to some sort of a 3-district virtual thing.
Keep in mind,
Because they want to be virtual, because they don't feel safe, they feel like the environment's more effective for them from a learning standpoint, whatever standpoint it is. I would just like to know if we're going to get to the point where we have the technology to continue this hybrid learning environment that we're kind of playing with right now into the future.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I know Russ sent out a Google form today to start that process of identifying those that may be interested in that format next year. And again, I think Chris has done a great job since he's been here of, providing. I mean, I'm looking around here and the stuff that's going on that we didn't used to have before. We've got charging stations out in, the senior commons and in the cafeteria for Chromebooks and, cell phones and things of that nature. So I think we're trending in the right direction as far as that goes. I don't know. That's a great question. I guess we'll wait and see what happens.
and Steve, just to clarify on that 3 districts, as we continue the investigation, that program is set up no different than our consortium, special ed consortium. They're still Linden kids. We don't lose kids.
Well, they don't get taught by our staff though, right? They get taught by some sort of...
Depending on...
we start watering down the number of kids, like, Mr. Lawrence teaches only like 1 section of this a day or whatever. If we start pulling these kids out, they're not going to be able to get in that class. There's just a lot of interest by these kids. We're going to end up having to offer more sections of the same class and not be able to fill them, in my opinion, if we start sending these kids other places. So I just really hope that we more thoroughly investigate the option of keeping it in-house for that kind of activity and not look to start up another virtual world. We've already got, so I guess in regards to that virtual word that they were talking of, is that going to replace the 200 kids that are thinking they want to come back next year in virtual again? That are in our virtual school this year, 100% virtual?
Yes, that would replace the standalone virtual school.
So
that we
those
currently have.
200 kids would become 200 with Fenton, 200 with Lake Fenton, be 600 kids?
It would be
Going like virtual high
a
school?
consortium program,
Something
yes.
like that?
Yep.
Okay. Well, again, I really think that the reason those kids are virtual this year is because they're not feeling safe with the environment. I openly admit, I apologize that I misread this virus. I thought it would be long behind us by now. It's disappointing that it's not, but I think we're turning the corner, and I really hope by the fall we're back to a normal environment, because I just think no matter how much effort our staff puts in, our kids, they just can't get as much contact time as they used to. So, so I guess my final question regarding everything that's going on this year is Fridays. I'm concerned about Fridays. And what I'd really like to see us try and do, what do we have, 7 Fridays left, maybe?
We're getting
In
down
the
to
school year, think something like that, 7 or 8, I'm not sure, I didn't count them up. But it would really be nice if we could turn those, maybe in a couple weeks, start going with a full synchronized learning experience on Fridays. And the reason I suggest that is a good idea is because I still think that down the road next year, we might want to use that tool of synchronized learning for like a snow day. You know, I don't expect our staff to do that for free. You know, I would expect a stipend we would offer for any snow day that they've covered. Because right now, we get a snow day, they're paid. It's a paid day off type thing. So given the fact that we don't want to really, nobody seems to want to really extend the school year beyond 180 days, whatever we have to do. And I'm all in favor of not extending it because, quite frankly, I think the recharge that we get in the summer months for the staff and the students is very valuable. I think the learn burn that you get from being off for 3 months, it's a one-time thing. If we get into one of these environments where we're 6 weeks on and 2 weeks off, to me, we have a bunch of learn burns going on throughout the year. So, not to mention, it basically messes up everybody's summer, basically. I think America is great because of the fact that we do take summers to recharge. So, bottom line is, if we had this synchronized environment for the rest of the year on Fridays, worked out all the bugs, then maybe next year, when we get into snowbird days, we could say, hey, looks like a snow day tomorrow, make sure you take your stuff home so you're ready to go for a virtual environment. And I think we could do this district-wide, but especially at the upper level where the kids are more averse at dealing with technology on their own. They don't have to have parents there necessarily to support them, like some of the younger kids maybe have to. So maybe it wouldn't be feasible for like a K-3 student to do it, but I really think as we get higher that we would have an option. So my question to you is, what do you think about that? Is there an option to create that synchronized learning experience yet this year on
Steve,
Fridays?
Can I respectfully ask that we hold that question until
Yeah,
reconfirmation?
Yeah, that's where we're
It
going. I
probably
just
fits
kind of
better
want to get
there.
these guys in.
Yeah, it probably fits better there.
Okay, very good. So, other than that, again, thanks to you guys, thanks to the staff. I know sometimes it seems like we're not on the same frequency, but you know, it's about giving these kids as much education as we can. And you know, these kids are only juniors and seniors 1 year, and these poor kids are juniors this year, and juniors last year, seniors this year. It's been tough on them. They've lost a little bit of life out of their experience. So I know you're trying to do the best you can, and hopefully for graduation we can come up with something that can be more than we did last year.
No, I think to speak to that, you know, I've been meeting with our senior leadership group for the past several months, just to get their input on what they look at, whether it be the academic awards, whether it be honors night, whether it be graduation. You know, and I can tell you, we've got a variety of different options that we're looking at. I would love nothing more than to give our graduating seniors class of 2021 an in-person experience. You know, and we're going to do whatever we can to give them that.
Very good. Sounds great. Thank you.
Mrs. Shane, any questions?
None at this time, but thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, and once again, everybody else has kind of said it, you know, incredible job this year, over the past year, really going back into the end of last school year. And once again, thanks for recognizing the staff and kind of pointing out the folks that I know everybody has really stepped up and done a great job. And I think you and Mike probably do a outstanding job of, you know, just kind of, you know, the pats on the back, so to speak, to acknowledge the extra effort that people are putting in. So appreciate it very much. All right. Mr. Dates, you got the follow.
You went the wrong way.
This is my third year here as the assistant principal. I remember 2 years ago talking, I didn't get a chance to last year with the shutdown. I just commented how I was a long-term sub here 14 years ago. Then I coached here for 10 years. And when I went to the other district to work full-time, I've always was hoping for an opportunity to come back. And still through the pandemic, I'm still thrilled to have this opportunity here. I love the community, I love the kids, I love the staff. So again, I love being a part of Linden Community Schools. First thing I want to talk about is some stuff from last year that I didn't get to present beforehand. Talk about kind of the COVID, since I'm the one that really deals with it at the high school. And still with our PBIS, SAT, and really the next steps that we're doing here at the high school. We're in year 3 of PPSC. It's promoting a positive school climate. Mrs. Armour is the one that heads it. You'll see my team later on. But we've really done a really, I think, fantastic job. We partnered with some local businesses to really focus on the positive outcomes rather than the negative behaviors. I've said multiple times to our staff that I'm really starting to drink the Kool-Aid on how we can change behaviors and increase students in the classroom and decrease discipline. And we've done a pretty darn good job of it. Year 2, we brought our SOAR matrix that we did at the high school as a school-wide, we brought it into the classroom. So the teachers then brought the same kind of rubric and made it individualized, but we used a common language that aligned with the school. We did reduce and not eliminate, but reduce some discipline stuff. And with the pandemic, I didn't want to show discipline data, but I'll get into it later on, just how we can break down metrics using a school-wide information system that connects with Synergy. We did track how we look at just recognizing positive things that kids are doing. And then last year we still used slips. 2,000 slips were turned in, and over 453 winners are recognized, called down the office on the announcements with Mrs. Sinclair. But still just trying to promote and recognize the positive things that kids are doing. We rolled out in year 2 the SRSS, which is a student risk screening scale. It supports the academic and behavior intervention. But it really deals more with the social emotional side, and it's done 3 times a year, and we're still running it out this year. That side's really rolled out more with Mrs. Dory, Mrs. Gerard, and our 3 counselors, really working on those tier 3 interventions, which again I'll show in some slides to come. We haven't had face-to-face meetings with PPSC, with the GASD, but the LHS ideas are shared countywide. We roll it out with videos. Mrs. St. Clair obviously being the person behind all that. We involve a lot of kids in those, and we roll out our high school occupation through those, and the GASD then shares those because, again, in year 2, I really think we as a team and as a school district have done a really excellent job with that. Our tutoring lab, which I was going to put on hold a little bit, was always a paper-pencil method. And we wanted to find a new way to do it. So working with Ellen Kissel, it's a much easier tracking system used for academic intervention and for athletic eligibility. It's easier to report back to Brett Young for 31A funding with those at-risk kids who are taking advantage of those resources. Just from the data last year, over about 35 kids a day were utilizing that. And again, it's something we're looking to get back and implement in the fall. Again, discipline I want to talk about this year just based on being in a pandemic, but when I first came in, I brought in the same system that we had in my previous school, and it's reporting all discipline electronically through Synergy. Major violations still get sent down to the administration, but all minors can be done through Synergy. The teacher can just click a couple things, send the minor. We keep the kids in class longer learning, and then the minor can be handled. It shoots an email to me immediately. It's easier to reconcile, and it's big on transparency. As crazy as that one bullet sounds, is increase in discipline documentation. It's not to increase to say, hey, we have problems, but we need to identify the areas that we can improve upon. And the Swiss system you see on the right, which is a school-wide information system, it breaks down data very detailed. You can break it down by the months, by the location. You can break it down by problem behavior, location behavior, different things that you might want to learn to reteach kids. Because again, a lot of behaviors are based on the fact that we haven't given them the right expectations for it. We're still doing restorative justice on all majors. When I tell you our major violations have decreased significantly, they have. And I don't know if that's based on the 1-2 years we've had with the PBIS model, but they have. Same thing with some of our minor violations, such as cell phones. If we focus on it, we talk about the expectation at the school, we talk about the expectation in the classroom, that also has decreased. The one thing that we've had this year is plagiarism, especially in the virtual setting, especially with those kids not being face-to-face. It's hard to teach them the correct behavior, so to speak. I did have Dr. George. I reached out to her, and she helped him out tremendously. Just so you can teach the kids the difference between plagiarism and paraphrasing, so they understand that when they use stuff from the internet, there's a certain way you can do it. And again, it has reduced some of the plagiarism stuff we've had. Again, promoting positive stuff and teaching the negative behaviors. Unfortunately, right now, I'm kind of the COVID person. It takes up a majority of my time. And I do think that we have been very intentional with our mitigation strategies. Did I miss this slide? I want to go, anyway, so our lunch seating charts. Our teachers were the first forefront on that. I used to be a logistic guy, so I came up with a crazy logistic idea that I thought would work. We have had 4 different lunch seating charts, but we do know where kids are at all times, so we know who to quarantine, who not. The teachers then helped set up the seating charts. We got the kids to their certain seating area. They sit with their 4th hour, and it has worked out tremendous. Our circular tables that you see in the diagram on the right, they seat 10 kids. So we reduce the number to 5 kids. It's the same kids that are on in 4th hour. So a lot of times we reduce the number of people that we quarantine off that. A table now will only get 2 kids quarantined on a positive, or if we had 10 kids at it, we'd have 6 kids quarantined. Same thing with classroom seating charts. I mean, our teachers are doing a phenomenal job with social distancing. There are times where there's a positive student and there's no other kids quarantined in the classroom, just based off how well they set up their classroom to avoid any other kids off of it. We've done directional hours, bathroom rotations. Our virtual Fridays have been extremely beneficial. 1 for our two-way interaction, 2 for our teacher preparing when they teach in multiple modalities, and 3, we had one time where we had 50 kids come off of quarantine on a Friday, and they were offered that opportunity to come in and get that one-on-one learning they didn't have for 10 to 14 days when they were unfortunately stuck virtually. It also saved on the 48-hour rule. The number of times where some kid has become symptomatic on a Friday or on a Sunday, and we didn't have that virtual on a Friday, has saved quarantining hundreds of kids this year as well. The 2 ladies there, I call them kind of my frontline superstars. There's days where Mrs. Ford and Mrs. Curtis will be answering phone calls for 3 hours and documenting stuff back and forth on the rough days. It's been pretty good of late. But the 3 of us, Mr. Dresky really had a pretty good process of how we can track everything with everything going on. Parent-student communication has been huge, and we've tried to really keep it consistent with how we do it. Mr. Dresky and Mr. Belil have helped me out a ton, but I've kind of been that one person who has been the bearer of bad news consistently throughout the year. And really the support that we get from our community is unbelievable. They understand. I can empathize with them because it's obviously not a good situation, But our parents have been fantastic with all the phone calls I've had with them. Our PBIS team. Up top, Mrs. Armour, Mrs. Federico, Mrs. St. Clair, Mrs. Quinlan, Mr. Burhans, and Mrs. James. As I told you, I truly believe we have done a fantastic job just implementing it with fidelity. We started being very student-driven. Mrs. Quinlan took her link crew, and they helped develop what they want as that school matrix. So it was student-driven rules and expectations. Then the teachers were included in, hey, let's bring these same expectations into your classroom and create that same classroom matrix. You'll see some statistics down there. That's based off of the Swiss data. Just so you know, Tier 1 is the school-wide SOAR that we have here, safety, ownership, achievement, respect. Our number's quite higher, just meaning that we have a large majority of our population in Tier 1, which means you don't have individualized behavior issues. Tier 2, you can see we're much lower. Tier 2 is behavior supports, where we have group situations, one-on-one, that builds on our Tier 1. And our Tier 3 is really tiny. Again, it just says that what we have going on is more of a focus of our Tier 1. But our Tier 3 kids are going to get more of that individualized stuff with some of our counselors, our social worker, and our school psychologist. So said in the past, we went with paper, but we've really had to change our ways. We had to go back and say, how can we keep this going so well when we rolled it out in year 2 and year 3 started off a little rough. Again, it was easy with Mrs. St. Clair's videos to kind of keep the momentum going with rolling out to the kids, and Mrs. Armour found ways to do virtual recognition where we sent things out to kids. And then the same thing, Mrs. Armour found ways to then recognize teachers with kind words back from the students, just to create that positive culture. Our community unknowingly was really a part of the PPSC process. When we came back face to face, there were some community members that did some teacher goodie bags. And then some senior parents, again, to hit your point, just want to help the kids go through. They created some senior goodie bags as well to give out, just promoting some positive stuff. SAT team, I had more pictures once that I came through. We have 3 teachers, Mrs. Van Chien, Mr. Fonda, and Mrs. Messer. All 3 of our counselors, our school psychologist, and school social worker. It's been a little more difficult this year with interventions academically, looking again at more Tier 2 and Tier 3, especially on the virtual side. And Mrs. Mason's done a phenomenal job. She's not only the point of contact for the high school, but she's really the district Odyssey Wear guru, and she's really found ways to help connect with those kids using Odyssey Wear and a new platform without being face-to-face. Where are we going? PBIS team will be sending out a school climate survey to parents, staff, and students here where we can break down some data. We do anticipate, again, hopefully a full fall rollout, but any way that we do have, obviously, Mrs. St. Clair stuff that she has provided. Again, we just want transparency. It's okay to have an increased number and discipline. We have to find ways that we can fix any problem we may have. And again, continue with that Swiss school information system. The SAT, we want to find really early identification of those kids so we can identify them early and find the accommodations and the things they need in the classroom to be successful. And continue to work on the relationships with the SAT team with those kids in order to help them out academically. Attendance, again, it's been very difficult with the pandemic. The number of principal excused absences the kids have, medical absences, etc. But the early communication, when hopefully we get back to the normal, with attendance letters at 4 absences, 7 absences, 10 absences, and then the communication before you have some types of truancy meetings. We have had some truancy that worked out very beneficial for kids, but there's a lot of communication that happens before that occurs. Again, the discipline-wise, I'd be happy, hopefully, to be able to share the data with you. The data itself, again, from my first year here, from the start of the school year till March, and last year from the start of the school year till March, is really quite impressive. The first year I asked, hey, send stuff so we can see where our problem areas are at, and our numbers really skyrocketed the first year, but we wanted transparency. And the numbers themselves last year did dip. Is it because of PPSC? I don't know. 1 year is not enough to determine that. But especially after a pandemic, I think we need to find ways to get back to where we were, and again, find areas of improvement. What questions do you have for me?
Thanks, appreciate it, Mike. Mr. Haney, any questions?
Thanks for the presentation. I don't have any at this time. Thank you.
Mrs. Luck?
Yeah, I don't have any questions either. I think it's awesome that all of the positive behavior, things are still being promoted. We've seen it in the presentations from all of the district buildings so far, but it's awesome that at the high school, it's still, the high school kind of ticks to, a different beat sometimes, and it's nice that that's still a priority here, so I really appreciate that, because as has been pointed out, this year's been so hard on everyone. It's nice that the kids can still, earn some recognition for, keeping doing a good job at the high school, so thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Ronning, do you have any questions for Mr. Gates?
Yeah, thanks for the presentation. I'm curious a little bit more, if you can speak a little bit more on that program that you report the discipline on. I'm just curious if is it an app or is it an off-the-shelf platform, and how do people report? Do they put it on their phone, and then does it, I think you said it sends alerts, and who do the alerts go to? I think that's obviously generating some great data, but I'm curious what the mechanics exactly are, how you use it.
So everything's through the GISD. The discipline's done through Synergy electronically. The minors then will automatically sync with our email that gets sent to me. The Swiss system is also through the GISD that links in with our behavior and discipline data. So it pulls all the data we enter for discipline. So we have to be fairly specific about time, place, behavior, kind of the reason behind the behavior, like the motivation behind it. So all of it's really through Synergy, but it's all synced through systems that the GISD has us paired up with. So the Swiss system is through it's something called PBIS apps, but it all syncs together, and it's all done through the GISD.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, thanks a lot. I appreciate everything you do.
Thank you.
Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Gates, for the presentation. I think you're probably right in the sense that the initiatives you've implemented are reducing the amount of discipline necessary. I think the fact that the virus has separated us has also been a key factor as far as if people aren't together. The less they're together, the less they can get upset with each other. So I wish that some of our adults would follow that strategy, but it doesn't work. So with kids, yeah, I think you get kids on the right track. And I think when we do come back, hopefully next year, full face-to-face, I think the bottom line is kids have learned to respect life a little more than they used to, and all the parts of it. So I think you'll get a better, you probably see it right now, the kids, when they come back today, I mean, they're all back today for some parts, so pretty much, and you can see the temperament that, that they've improved. So not to say you're not going to have a few flare-ups here and there, but for the most part, I think we're on the right track there. So just keep up the good work and encourage the kids to do the same. Thank you.
Mrs. Shane?
Nothing other than thank you for the presentation.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Excellent job, and we know we've got the right guy handling all the difficult tasks.
Thank you.
You got big shoulders to take it on, so thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, moving on. This is the first portion of the meeting for public comments. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes duration on non-agenda items directed to the board president, and they will be referred to the superintendent for his response at the next meeting or sooner if warranted. I know we have the link for anyone remotely, and we have cards for anyone here. Do we have any public comments at this time, Mrs. Callett?
None registered at this time.
All right, we have one hand raised.
Can I do that without a card?
If you'll just complete a card afterwards.
Okay. I guess Clinton Lawhorn, 12292 Raylan Hills Drive, Perry, Michigan. I want to address two things that were brought up. First of all, the snow day thing, I see some logistic issues there. Number one, if I've planned out my lessons for the week and we have a snow day on a Wednesday, and that was a day that I was going to work with my students in groups, so they were going to do some sort of hands-on activity, Sure, I could Zoom from home with my laptop, but I'm ultimately going to give them some busy work because I'm not going to be able to do the lesson that was planned, not in the same way. I don't have anything other than a laptop and a camera at home, and teaching math without being able to look at their papers or show them what I'm trying to do is pretty much impossible. When we were teaching from home, when we were all remote, we took things home from school so that we could teach from home. But if we're teaching from school, we don't have all those things at home. So to think that I'm going to look at the weather every day in the winter and decide, oh, it might be a snow day tomorrow, I got to pack up all my stuff and take it home so I can teach from home tomorrow just in case, and then it's not a snow day, so I got to bring it all back, get it all hooked up and have it ready for the day. Logistically, that's a nightmare. And like I said, if I've got specific things planned that I want to do and I can't do it in Zoom, I mean, the whole purpose of wanting to be face-to-face is so we can interact with the kids and they can interact with one another. And I don't care what kind of breakout rooms you set up in the Zoom, you can't get the same thing. And the second thing I want to address is the idea that, the numbers of kids who are attending 2 days per week, yes, it has decreased from what we started, but I think that's because they were sold a bill of goods that wasn't true. Most kids who have started as 2-day students and gone to 4-day students have done so because they and their families have figured out that it's just not possible to be successful at the level they want to be successful attending school 2 days when the rest of us are going 4 days and then doing remote work at home on a Friday. And so I don't feel like they've made the decision to come back 4 days because it's what they felt was best for their family. I think they've made that decision because they felt like if they didn't, their kid was going to get a C instead of an A, or they were going to fail instead of getting a C, or whatever it might be. But I think we strong-armed them into it. I don't think they came there because that's what they decided was the best thing for their families. Thank you.
Thanks, Clint. And we have no other public comments at this time on non-agenda items, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda, minutes of the work session from the April 7th meeting, invoices for the month of March 2021, and a personnel summary sheet. Do I have a motion and support?
So moved.
Support. It's been moved and seconded. This requires a roll call vote. Mrs. Keller?
Haney,
Yes.
Luck,
Yes.
Montague,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Shayna,
Yes.
and Maker.
Yes. Moving on to action items. Our first item is the non-homestead renewal for 2021. Russ?
Thank you, Mr. Maker. At our last board meeting, Ms. Pam Dickey communicated the purpose for asking our stakeholders to renew our non-homestead millage. There was some discussion. Originally, we had recommended a 10-year renewal for the 20.3746 mills. We did go back and do some research. I think, Mr. Murphy, you brought it up about the possibility of a 9-year renewal in order to get the election cycle on the even years. We did do some research. We did talk to our financial attorneys on that over at Troon. And yes, that is the recommendation we would like to make, is to place a non-homestead renewal of 20.3746 mills for 9 years on the August 3rd, 2021 ballot. Another question that was asked at the last meeting, are there other ballot initiatives on the August 3rd? At that time, there were none. There will be another local district to the east of us that is planning to put a non-homestead renewal on the August 3rd ballot at this time. They have not approved it, but it has gone to their board.
Thanks, Russ. I need a motion to approve the non-homestead renewal as presented, as recommended by the administration for the 9-year resolution. Do I have a motion and support?
So moved.
All support. And we'll have discussion. Mr. Haney?
I have nothing at this time.
Mrs. Lutt?
I guess the only thing that came to my mind originally was that it seems a little awkward to do the resolution for 9 years versus 10 years. I think Mr. Murphy brought up a really good point at the last meeting and I understand why the administration is recommending that. I guess if we get us back on track this time, then the next time we do the 10-year renewal. So, I mean, it does make sense. But that was really my only thoughts and comments on it.
If you don't mind me interrupting, I'm sorry. Just for clarification, one of the reasons we went to the 9-year, if we did a 10-year renewal, but we voted in year 9, because of the way the structure of the tax levy, we could potentially be looking at 2 rollbacks prior to that new non-homestead going into place. So our stakeholders could vote on, for example, the 20.3 mills 9 years from now, but because of 2 rollbacks that we would have no control over, it could potentially be less than the 18 mills, which we would have no control over, period. So I should have clarified that earlier, I apologize. So that is the difference from a 10-year to a 9-year.
Thanks, Russ. Mr. Montague, any questions?
No, I think that was a good recommendation of Mr. Murphy from the last meeting, and I think that's the right move, and yeah, I support it. Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks.
Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Mrs. Dickey for using the verbiage that she said we can renew it for up to 10 years, and I didn't remember hearing that from our former business manager 10 years ago, so maybe that's what triggered in my mind that there was an option there to get us out of schedule, so we didn't have to do 10. So I'm glad that it's an option to go to 9. I don't, a 1-year difference, yeah, we gotta come back from 30 instead of 31, but it's not that big a deal because, like I said, it would be guaranteed to be an election that we shouldn't have to pay for, and because there will always be congressional and state representatives facing primaries in an even number year, like 30, 40, 50. There might even be some, but there'll always be that. And then if we did fail, we'll still have another chance in November to get it done there, but I think we'll be fine. We'll see how it goes, but I'm glad we're looking at this to save some money, and I hope that that district that east of us is also considering this, and then maybe I guess we will share some of our costs, at least with the townships that we share with that district. So that's good. That's all for me. Thank you.
Mr. Shannon, any questions?
None this time.
Yeah, I'd just like to thank Mr. Murphy for that thought at the last meeting as far as the 9 versus 10 years. A little bit of perspective and some experience, and bring that forward was greatly appreciated, so thank you. All right, so we have the motion and support to approve the non-homestead renewal as presented for a 9-year resolution on the August 3rd, 2021 election ballot. Roll call vote, Mrs. Keller?
Haney,
Yes.
Luck,
Yes.
Montague,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Shayna,
Yes.
and Maker.
Yes. Next item is the cooperative JV girls soccer agreement. Russ?
Thank you. Due to a decrease in participation, we would like the board to approve an MHSAA cooperative agreement with Source Creek for junior varsity girls soccer. This agreement would be for 2 years at the sub-varsity level only. Our current participation numbers will make it difficult to sustain a junior varsity and varsity program this year and moving into next based on projections. Source Creek is in the same situation. Lance is on the call this evening. Just to let the board know, in his communications with the MHSAA, MHSAA met this morning and they have tentatively approved this cooperative based on Linden School Board. Swartz Creek has already approved it based on meeting schedules. And again, we have verbal confirmation from the MHSAA that after this year, because it is sub-varsity only, if the numbers increase, this cooperative can be dissolved.
Thanks, Russ. Lance, do you have anything to contribute?
Not too much, just the fact the reason we did this is because we had like 28 to 30 girls on our varsity Swiss Creek was in the exact same position. And what that was going to cause was probably 10 girls on each varsity team never being able to see the field unless it was, a 5-0 game, and they would get 5 minutes in. So what the AD, me and Adrian over at Swiss Creek, we talked, and just to get the girls more playing time, just due to COVID and small numbers, if we could just get this approved through the mhsaa. I didn't think they were going to do it just because of the timing of it, but they did verbally approve it, and we just needed to get approved from our board and their board, just to make it happen for the girls to be able to get some more playing time.
Thanks, Lance, I appreciate it. So at this time, I need a motion to approve the MHSAA JV Girls Soccer Cooperative Agreement with Swartz Creek as presented. Do you have motion and support?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion, Mr. Haney?
I actually do have a question. Is 20 to 30 athletes not enough to field 2 teams in soccer?
In a normal year, it would be, but with quarantining and because they play 11 at a time, so they could go, 14 to 15. But when you're talking about 4 girls get quarantined, which has already happened to both schools, we would then be canceling varsity games instead of JV games. So that's what we were trying to get away from.
And also additionally, with next year, if this is a 2-year agreement, do we have any wiggle room to get out of that? Or is this a firm 2-year commitment?
I believe, without 100% knowing, I believe that it is a 2-year contract, but it was, the way I communicated it with the MHSAA, it was just for this year. But they did not have a 1-year contract to be able to sign.
Lance has received, and we haven't received verbal communication, we all know how that goes. But again, because it is sub-varsity only, if the numbers are in a healthy position next year, we would have the opportunity to communicate with the MHSAA and Swartz Creek about dissolving the cooperative.
That's all I have, thank you.
Sherry, like any question?
No questions, just more of a comment. Lance, I really appreciate your forward thought on this. I think it's a great idea to be able to allow the students all an opportunity to play and not, just standing on the sidelines. So I'm definitely in support of all the cooperative agreements that we've had over the years, and I appreciate the fact that you, jumped on the possibility of this even late in the game just to support, the girls being able to play.
Jared Montague?
Thanks. No questions or comments, thanks.
Mr. Murphy?
Yeah.
Mr. Murphy?
I'd just like to comment on Mr. Haney's thought there, that I caught that too. I thought that was a pretty big number, that would be plenty for 2 teams, but the COVID thing is what it is. So for 1 year at least, and Mrs. Luck's comments were spot on about our co-op programs and your effort to make this happen for these kids. They're already losing out on enough on other things, and they don't need to lose out on this group of kids. One question I might have is, have you reached out in the 8th grade to see what kind of interest there is coming up in girls soccer for next year? Ms. Beelan?
I have not.
Okay. It's really a moot point because as Mr. Selsky said, we can, we can modify this agreement next year if need be, the numbers change. So, but I just looked at that AYS Soul Complex next to my parents' old house. And it doesn't have the traffic. I know there's a new organization running it now, and there's just not the numbers that there used to be. So soccer might be trending down a little bit with things like lacrosse picking up some of the slack. So we'll see where the numbers go. But thanks again for saving the day on this one, Mr. Vidal, and your Swartz Creek counterpart. Thank you.
Mrs. Shana?
Nothing at this time.
Yeah, thanks, Lance. Appreciate the creativity and the cooperative approach to addressing this as an opportunity for some students to get some extra experience in playing time. All right, we have the motion to approve the cooperative agreement with Swartz Creek for the JV girls soccer program. We'll have roll call vote. Mrs. Keller?
Hany,
Yes.
Luck,
Yes.
Montague,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Shayna,
Yes.
and Maker.
Yes. Next up is the Linden Community Schools Extended COVID-19 Learning Plan. Russ?
Thank you. Just give me a quick second here to share the screen with the folks in Zoom here. Okay, again, with our Linden Community Schools Extended COVID Learning Plan, once a month at a board meeting, we are required to reconfirm our learning plan. And again, the only thing I've added to the first page, they're just links you can hit on. They kind of give all the legal descriptions of why we're following this. Is the Michigan Guidelines for Operating School Safety, which came out in January. I believe it was January 8th. They were released, and we have been following them. And what that did is it kind of replaced the roadmap that we originally started with back in August and September. So with that being said, just a layout of our extended COVID learning plan. Again, we have a reconfirmation meeting at the second board meeting of every month. So when we look at the introduction, we have no change. Assurances, no change. And again, the assurances kind of dictate what the school has to provide. Our plan components, no change. They're kind of listed here. The reason for the plan, again, we have that in place. There's no change. Our educational goals, school improvement goals, no change. Our instructional delivery, again, no change. Our young 5th to 8th grade, we're in a full in-person cohorted model, Monday through Friday. Also with that Linden virtual option or the 100% virtual option. Linden High School, grades 9 through 12, we have the 4-day or 2-day instructional model, Monday through Thursday, with a remote or virtual Friday, as well as students have the 100% virtual option. And again, Part D, instruction for core academic areas, no change. Equitable access to technology, no change. And then students with disabilities, as far as their educational processes, again, no change based on the original confirmation. So with that, we need to move into the metrics that we need to provide the board and the public with based on our reconfirmation plan. The first one being actual 7-day averages of COVID positives. And as you can see, again, I'm just putting them in 4 or 5 week blocks. We have meetings every Wednesday with the Genesee County Health Department, and we kind of go over these metrics. We also go over any updates that may be coming, such as the toolkit and what those mean. So we do have our 7-day averages, cases per million as of last week. They're usually about a week behind. We're at 588 million, or excuse me, 588 cases per million. What do hospitalizations look like? And these are based on the 3 hospitals in Genesee County, Genesis, Hurley, and McLaren. As of 4/16, inpatient totals in Genesee County were 232. We look at the number of deaths resulting from COVID-19 in Genesee County on a 7-day average. We're at 2.9 deaths. COVID cases for each day, or I should say tests per million. And again, you can see our number of tests continue to go up. And again, is that because of the athletic testing weekly? I don't know, because that is reported back. But as well as people going to the health departments, the hospitals, the drive-through clinics to get their tests. But again, you can see tests per million is up as of the 16th of April. Percentage of positive COVID-19 cases, and again, this continues to go up. You can see back on 4/9 when this data was presented to us, we were at a very high rate of 21.4%. Hopefully that was the peak, and we can continue to start climbing down. Only time will tell with that. And again, this is a graph, and again, all this is on the MySafe website through the state of Michigan. Healthcare capacity, again, with our 3 county hospitals. As of 4/20, again, because they get this information a little more quicker. Condition is good, our ventilators available, we're still about, just 49%, almost half are available still. PPE supplies seem to always been in good situation. COVID-19 inpatients, that is increasing, as you can see here. ICU occupancy is about 95%, and I believe 60% of that 95% is COVID related. So again, that continues to increase. Two-way interaction, and again, this is usually once a month I take the opportunity to thank our teachers for this because it is work. It's not the simple, let's just pick the phone up or contact the parent and the student and find out what's going on, good, bad, or otherwise. There's a lot of documentation that goes into this because we've got to present these numbers not only to the board, we also have to provide it to the state. Jennifer Bentley does a nice job. Cindy Day, secretaries in all the other schools do a great job to making sure these numbers are updated almost on a daily basis. And of course I say that, and as I look at my screen, I forgot to input last week's numbers. So I do apologize. But as you can see, I'm pretty confident that number is going to be above 90%, as it has been pretty much all year. So again, kudos to our teachers and all of our staff for communicating and keeping kids on track. So our dashboard, this is as of this morning. And again, this just updated every morning. We do get visitors to this site every day, sometimes multiple times. But I tend to update it as best I can every morning, sometimes as early as 5, 6 in the morning. Sometimes it might be, 8, 9 o'clock, depending on meetings in the morning. But we do get it updated daily. So we do have the current running total as well as the cumulative total for the year. So what did the last 5 days look like for us? And again, compared to the week prior, yeah, our numbers are down a little bit, which is a good sign. But it is a roller coaster. There's no doubt about it. So again, it just gives you kind of an idea. What does it look like when, again, started doing 5-day averages across? We did hit some peaks here when we came back from spring break, just prior to and when we came back. And then hopefully, as I said, our trend continues to go downward. Only time will tell. Gives you some numbers, what those numbers and what that graph is based off of. Our positive 5-day average and our quarantine 5-day average. Talk a little bit about athletics. And again, Michigan Department of Health and Human Services now requires that our student athletes ages 13 through 19 are tested at least weekly based on the sport. And spring sports, what we offer, it just has to be at least once a week. So every Monday morning, middle school, high school, open their doors 7 a.m. Student athletes come in and they go through the rapid testing process. So as you can see, the first week we did it, Linden High School had 1 positive out of 188 tests. Middle school, 2 out of 36. Week 2, 1 positive at the high school, 0 at the middle school. Week 3, which was this Monday, 2 at the high school, 0 at the middle school. So again, and I bring this up because I think it's important for people to understand. When things were opened back up and sports were allowed to continue, there was a lot of information being spread out there that athletics was the cause of COVID and the increase in numbers. Not to say we're special in Linden. We are, but not for COVID. We are not seeing that trend in Linden with our athletes. We are not seeing that as of right now. So it is the administrative recommendation to reconfirm Linden School's extended COVID-19 learning plan as presented. Darren, can you hit those lights, please? Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. I appreciate the update. I need a motion and support to reconfirm the extended COVID-19 learning plan as presented. Do I have motion and support?
So moved.
I'll support.
We have motion and support. We'll go around for any comments or questions. Mr. Heem?
Do we have any data on staff vaccinations at this point?
Yes, we do, to the extent that we know what we scheduled with the help, in our collaboration with the health department. I did send a survey out, a very basic survey, just kind of a yes or no, have you been vaccinated, at what level? Because I do know there are individuals within our district, that may have scheduled with their health departments or, local pharmacies that were offering that weren't through the school. So based on those results, correct me if I'm wrong, Cynthia, I think we have determined that we're approximately 80 to 85% vaccinated as a staff. And again, those aren't hard numbers,
Sure.
because the only ones we're really sure of are the ones that we scheduled with the health department.
In turn, how does that relate, the vaccinations relate to teachers being quarantined? If they're vaccinated and they come in close contact, they do not have to be quarantined?
That is correct. And I'll even go as far as we have seen an increase. We have seen our students who are 16 years and older, we have had situations where we have went to a student, hey, you need to be quarantined, and they say, well, I've been vaccinated. And if it's within the 2 weeks, past the 2 weeks of the final vaccination, then students don't have to be quarantined.
Okay. I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Sherry Lowe?
Actually, just to follow up to your response there, if students have had a positive COVID test in the last 90 days, they also don't have to be quarantined, is that correct?
Quarantined, that is correct, as well as the testing. I thought that's where you're going, that's why I had to wait a minute. Because a student that has COVID, that has a positive result within 90 days does not have to go through the athletic testing. And we have had individuals that have brought their paperwork in, they're able to participate.
So how would that work then? Let's say you have a student who never had a positive test, but they're, you have them tested for antibodies and they have antibodies. That doesn't count.
That does not count. And that's based on the FAQs that was just released on April 16th from the mhsaa, based on the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. So we do have clarification on that now.
Gotcha, okay. Oh, it's still my turn. I was following up from that and I forgot it was my turn. Actually, I just appreciate all the information. I'm in full support of reconfirming this as usual. I guess I kind of want to just jump ahead a little because I'm suspecting that Mr. Murphy is going to bring up Friday since he kind of already brought it up. And
Yep.
I want to get some, I guess, my thoughts out on that while it's my turn. And I know, the people in this room, the people listening on the meeting know that back when we had the decision to return the high school back to a different modality, I was advocating for option 11, though I know it wasn't the super popular choice. I also was the one who threw out the idea of having the virtual Fridays continue because that was not part of the original option 11. I personally see the value in the virtual Fridays for the high school staff and students from the perspective of, the modality workload for the staff and also for the students that either choose to remain hybrid or have had to be quarantined. Those days are used for makeup opportunities, for meetings with teachers, for work to be done in advance for the upcoming week, and just, with all the uncertainty, I guess I feel differently than Mr. Murphy on this, and I, will support us continuing in this modality, at least at this point, because I think we're, we've made a lot of progress. I also do not support making yet one more change, just for the sake of making a change. If we can continue to make progress as we have been doing, I think we should just keep the ball rolling. So I think that was all.
Thank you. Mr. Montague?
Thank you, Mr. Baker. Thank you, Russ, for all of the data. As you know, I like looking at it. I'm also looking at some other data that I continue to look at from the Genesee County Health Department website, and it all aligns with everything that you've reported. And I think what I'm seeing in the charts as you look back to the beginning of the pandemic, you're seeing kind of three spikes. You're seeing the spike when everything first hit in April. You're seeing the spike in kind of Halloween time, November last year, and then we just saw another spike. And what's encouraging is that this last spike, especially compared to the one in October, November, it had a sharper rise, but then it's also now declining quite a bit. And you know, when I looked at today's case data, it was 78 cases, and even compared to 2 weeks ago, that number was 400 cases positive. Now that's in Genesee County overall, but it's, you know, it's decreasing rapidly. We're seeing some of that reflected in the dashboard numbers too. I'm looking at the dashboard from 4/6, which was, we had 259 total students and staff that were either quarantined or positive, and then right now we're at 231. So we've seen another decline there, about 30, one way or the other. And then the other thing that's interesting is all of the schools have had the number of students quarantined go down, except for Linden L had a spike within these last 2 weeks. Central L is the same. LMS went up by 4, but now the high school has decreased quite a bit. So, you know, it's gone from 58 that are quarantined right now 2 weeks ago to 30 that are quarantined. So I almost wonder if maybe there's some kind of an impact of the vaccines like we were talking about. And then when I look at the death for Genesee County, I know you had that rolling average of, I think, 2.9. The good thing about this last spike is it was about a third of the number of, you know, the highest number of deaths in the county compared to the other 2 spikes. And the other ones I'm looking at, you know, we got up to 10 to 15 deaths per day. This one had a max peak of about 5 or 6 per day, and we're down to 1 or 2 right now. So we're on the downward end of that trend. So overall, what I'm seeing is, you know, again, our staff COVID positive numbers, we were at 1 throughout the district 2 weeks ago. We're at 3 now. That tells me I think the vaccine program is working. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, just because I've experienced it personally, and obviously I've talked to a lot of other parents, you know, even though we have a lot of kids that are quarantined, I really believe that the administration has done a fantastic job of quarantining people properly, doing a nice job of the contact tracing, and really sticking to it. And I think the communication has been really good. I think, you know, I think maybe Mr. Gresky made the point that the parents have been very cooperative and understanding and making arrangements for the quarantines to happen. And I think that's why, frankly, you know, with modalities, I remember Mr. Soselsky saying a few times, his biggest plea was, I don't want to go backwards. Whenever we can sign up for a plan, I don't want to go back. And I think because of all those reasons and the effective quarantining, you know, it looks like we're on the downward turn of this particular spike. Hopefully there aren't more of them, but we got to keep watching the numbers to see what happens. But I think that everything's rolling in a good direction, and you know, I think we just got to keep chugging along, and hopefully once more people get vaccinated and a little more herd immunity kicks in, then, you know, we might be at the end of these spikes for good. So I'm comfortable extending learning plan. Thanks for listening to me talk about data, and appreciate the information. Thanks.
Thanks, Jake. Mr. Murphy?
Thank you, Mr. Maker. Mr. Selsky, let's start with the vaccinations again. 85% of the staff you're estimating. How much do you know to be true?
I know to be true that of what we scheduled with the health department, as well as the numbers that staff responded back to. And again, that was not a required survey we sent out. That was strictly so we could have an idea as we went through this process.
So that's the 85 number. That's
Correct.
how you get to 80%.
Correct.
Okay, I got the impression maybe that was 50% that you knew and 30% you thought.
No, I'm sorry.
Okay, good. That's good to hear. And so basically, it sounds like to me like vaccinations are literally available all over the place if you want one. I mean, that's what I hear on the radio. Now, maybe that's just fraudulent stuff, but
No, I mean,
you want to take a road trip to Ford Field, I guess you can get one any day you want.
yeah, there's different facilities out there.
Yeah.
Genesis Banquet Center over there is doing vaccinations. Sometimes Rite Aid here in town has them. Sometimes you can call your doctor and they can, you know, tell you to go to a certain place that they know has the doses.
Right.
As well as the health departments, you can still go to their websites and register.
Okay, well, again, getting into our favorite health department there, you know, back when this was all starting to go and it looked like it was going to last, you know, I was talking to our rep, our state rep, Mike Mueller, and how things were, when Governor Whitmer was having full control over making all the decisions before that got reduced. He said they were trying to argue for more local control. And unfortunately, their idea of local control was for local health departments to have the control. And, you know, to me, when the governor talks about local control, she's talking about individual school boards like ours having the local control to make these decisions. So there's a bit of a disconnect there, in my opinion. I just wonder how Livingston County's limitations are now versus Genesee County. Do you have any idea how they're marrying up against each other?
I do not know.
Okay. Because we do have kids that live in Livingston County. We have, you know, we're close to Livingston County. It's very frustrating that we couldn't be considered under their guise when we're fairly significant distance away from Genesee's hotspot, which is probably Flint. So, that being said, I'm continue to be disappointed in our county health department, and I think they're causing us a lot of unnecessary problems here as far as quarantining kids. And that when you look at those athletic numbers and you show how very few kids test positive, I'll bet you that's a very similar reflection to the whole student body, not just the, I think you could probably extrapolate that out to the student body and be very similar. So, like they've always said, COVID does not seem to affect the kids. And based on these numbers, I guess I would tend to agree with them. And even though, I mean, I've got relatives that have gone through this, so some that are going through it right now. Children not seem to be affected too much by it, but yet they test positive. Adults, yeah, they seem to have more, you know, real physical limitations being put on themselves, whether it be breathing or just aches and pains and all this kind of stuff. So it can affect people differently. That's the frustrating part. Is there's no rhyme or reason about how badly you're going to be affected by it. So the bottom line is, I think our kids have proven that we can exist in school, and yeah, we have some, like I said, quarantines that I wish the county health department would follow the CDC, the body of all bodies of health, and take their recommendations and extrapolate them to us. But for some reason, they don't seem to want to do that, which is probably political. But. So anyways, bottom line here is we've got Fridays at the high school that don't mirror what's going on throughout the district. You know, all the other buildings are going K5, K8's going Monday through Friday, full board. And I'm not asking, you know, for us to throw all of our kids further disenfranchised, the few kids that are in the hybrid mode right now. But I would like to see us turn Fridays, and I understand Mr. Lawhorn's comments earlier about trying to teach from home on a day. Even if it's a scheduled day, there's going to be, for him, a problem of moving material back and forth on Friday to teach from home. Although I suppose he could come to here and teach remotely from here and not really have that problem. As we talked about a snow day, that'd be a little bit bigger challenge to get, to get here to teach that way. But the bottom line is I think we're shortchanging our high school students here a little bit by not pushing them a little harder. And it's like I said before, I understand we're trying to reach out to the kids that are struggling, that are a little bit behind. But I also like the idea of pushing each and every kid. If it's a B student, I want them to be an A student. If it's an A student, I want them to be a better than A student. So I just think that if we're going to have all this technology available to us, we need to find out really what it can do for us. As like I said before, with this issue with this virtual school that's out there, maybe facing us down the road with a 3-district virtual school, I would rather see Dr. George and Mr. Lawhorn teach our kids than somebody else. Okay? So, but that may require some sort of a virtual component to do that. So I'd like to get with the staff. I'd like you guys to get together and talk about this. And again, it's going to vary from staff member to staff member. You know, Mr. Lawhorn might have problems. Dr. George might not. So we're going to have to work that out. And we can't just say, well, one person has a problem, so we're not going to do it at all. Or else, why are we investing in all this technology that we've utilized to this point? you know, for the next pandemic, I guess, I don't know. But that certainly kind of seems like what it's for, really. So, again, I think we need to utilize this remaining 6-7 weeks here. I mean, I know it'd take probably a couple weeks to get it in place, but I just really like to see us do it for 6 weeks, 6 Fridays. See what this synchronized learning experience can be. All classes, all students going through the process. Let's just see how it comes out. I think what we're doing now is only getting half the students' benefit. And I think some of the teachers are working harder than others, quite frankly, doing this. And that concerns me too. So I think the kids deserve an education. All kids deserve an education. And if you ask a kid, well, do you really want to do this? They're probably going to tell you, no, I don't want to do that. But that's not what this is all about. We're educating them. It's our responsibility to educate them. It's not their responsibility to tell us what to do. You know? So because, yeah, these kids some of the kids are not doing anything right now. They're fully good with not doing anything right now. But that's not making them a better student. So I think I can't support this as it's printed here, but if we could somehow get something going in the remaining 6 weeks of the school year in a synchronized learning environment, I think we would benefit district-wide from doing so. So,
Steve, I want to just jump in. I know
Yeah.
we're usually going in order, but since we're back in person, we can kind of have some dialogue a little bit. I just want to make it clear that, at least from my understanding, and I think the information we've been presented, is teachers at the high school are here on Fridays. I think most of them have been here on Fridays through the entire school year, and my understanding is that all of them are here on Fridays now. So, I mean, to say that they're not here and trying to shuffle stuff back and forth, I think that was with regard to a different situation, and with this situation, they're all here working with students and planning and such.
with some students, not all.
Correct, but
Okay.
then to that point as well, as we've already mentioned, actually you brought up the county health department and the regulations, we know that the quarantine requirement has just gone from 10 days back to 14 days now, a couple of weeks ago. And if you, knowing from personal experience too, that used to be like 5 or 6, maybe 7 at the most school days and a weekend or 2 weekends. Now it's like 2 full school weeks. So those kids are out for at least 9 or 10 school days now, and having that Friday available for them to work with their teachers when they're at home as well, independently, to not get behind, I think is really meaningful. So I think as long as that requirement is there, I just think we should, I mean, it's my opinion, and you can have yours as well, but I really feel that leaving things, you know, kind of in the situation Ben is going to be best for the teachers and for the students.
Well, I appreciate those thoughts, but I guess my concern again is, why does a quarantine student, why are they unable to learn virtually? I don't understand that.
They can, if they're able to.
Yeah, exactly.
The option is there.
So why are we concerned that, oh, kids are out in quarantine, so I guess we can't do anything with them? No, we're gonna reach out and try to teach them, right?
That's
And if we had a Friday synchronized event where everybody was getting the same kind of teaching, not some kids getting the benefit of being here in class, like the hybrid puts on, and then the other kids, that's what I'm saying, is that's why I wouldn't ask us to bring those kids back here on Friday for the rest of the year. I think that's kind of pointless at this point. But, given the fact that COVID is still going on. But, there still could be benefit in trying to teach a lesson on every Friday to every student throughout the remainder of the year. That's my point. So, I cannot continue to support a plan that doesn't push us. This isn't pushing us. This is status
Just for
quo.
clarification, Steve, because
Okay.
I got a little confused there with what you're saying.
Okay.
So you're indicating what you would like to see
Yes,
is that still remain remote Friday,
yes.
and then the teachers teach.
Yeah, they come here to teach, like
Virtually.
they are right now, but they
Okay.
teach virtually. They take a synchronized lesson to all students.
So-
All students are expected to Zoom up at home
Yeah.
and join us on the Zoom.
Okay.
So-
And I believe with the virtual Friday right now,
Mhm.
again, whether staff are in the school or not,
Right.
just
We're only reaching out
The
to some kids
expectation
under
is
the
for them
remote
to,
right now.
to have
That's my
a
understanding.
synchronous or an asynchronous learning opportunity for the students on Fridays. That's Remote Friday. Some of those teachers are using that for small group instruction. Some of them are using it for one-to-one. I know some of them are using it for assessment. Some of them are actually using them for actual classes. I
Right.
mean, they're actually conducting classes
Right.
with the expectation to the student
But
to
see,
log
that-
in.
the
Hold
problem-
on, Steve.
Okay, go ahead.
Check your Google.
Yeah.
I've given you work, check your email, do this, do that, connect with me, communicate with me. So I think that expectation is there. Teachers are doing it differently.
Yeah.
They may not do it the traditional lesson that we would anticipate in a face-to-face lesson. Some are. There are some teachers that are doing that. And then some of them are doing it teaching and learning differently. So I think the expectation that learning opportunities are available, that's always been the expectation for a Friday.
Yeah, they're optional, basically, though. They turn into an optional environment for some kids. Some kids, it sounds like they're required to be participating, or at least encouraged to. And other kids, it's like, well, if you need help, give me a call, or whatever. That's how we're gonna do this on Fridays. And that's, to me, some kids are just not getting anything. And those are the ones I worry the most about. And it's not because they won't be, they'll be fine, but they could be better if they were forced to participate. That's what my point is here. We need to force all students to participate. Okay? Now, if a teacher wants to deliver it asynchronously versus synchronously, I'm not sure that's going to really blend with the students they're at home and their class in 4th hour is synchronous and then their 5th hour one isn't. Okay, I guess. But then their 6th hour might be synchronous again. So they're kind of like, oh, okay, well, I just picked an asynchronous lesson, I believe, is something you just kind of pull off the net, you kind of work on it. Is that?
The teacher may have loaded up a video, they may have additional research, again, depending on the lesson or where they're at
Right.
in their pacing, yeah.
So, again, back to my whole point of this thing is twofold. It's to force all kids to participate through the remainder of the year on their scheduled basis in high school. Because they're being forced in K-8 to participate 5 days a week. Okay, that's point number one. And point number two is I want to understand what is our potential upside with virtual learning. Do we have an option, and I know Mr. Lawhorn has concerns about the snow day thing, but what about having maybe a review day? I know he suggested that you might have to give busy work on a day like that. And I go, well, to me, can we do maybe you don't have your tools, but even if it was a busy work day, it still has some value to it, wouldn't it, to the kids? I mean,
Anytime our
relearning
teachers-
a process that they,
Anytime our teachers are able to communicate
Right.
with our students is valuable.
Right. The bottom line is that some years kids get 174 days of actual face-to-face. And some years like this year, I don't think we have, 3 snow days, something like that? I don't know.
I don't, without
Yeah.
going back.
But I
to-
mean, yeah, we had so many other distractions,
Yeah.
but it was a mild year, I think,
Yeah.
for the most part.
Steve, I just want to mention something else
Sure.
too, and this whole year's been off balance, as we all know.
Yeah.
But every time, we add something to one side or take something away, the scales tip again, right?
Yeah.
And so, I understand what you're saying with regard to Fridays. I completely understand where you're coming from on it, but thinking about the fact as well that, and we've experienced this in my household firsthand, so I've seen it and I know, the kids that are quarantined on no fault of their own,
Right.
they can't come to school at all,
Right.
right? Not hybrid, not come a couple days a week, not come in if you feel like it, they cannot come to school
Right.
for up to 2 weeks. Those kids have the opportunity to get time with their teachers on those Fridays when they're able to come back. They're able to come in to take tests and quizzes and do things, get caught up for those days, that they weren't able to have that same interaction on no fault of their own.
Right.
And while our quarantine numbers have been high over the past few weeks, until we get to a point where we see those steadily down,
Right.
I think we would be really short-sighted for not only our teaching staff, but for our students as well, that are stuck at home on no fault of their own, to take that opportunity away for them to have that interaction. So
But-
I know what you're saying,
Yeah.
and I agree that everybody should have the opportunity to learn every day.
But I think Mr. Sosowski indicated that quarantine kids can learn on a daily basis.
They don't have to wait and take 2 weeks off
They
and then
can't-
come back
they
and I'm
can't
2 weeks
be-
behind.
They can't be with their teacher every day though, Steve.
Why can't they? Why
Because
can't
they
they zoom
come
in?
here.
Why can't we set it up where they can zoom
Zooming
in?
is
That's
not
what I
the
don't
same.
understand.
Zooming is not the same as being in the physical space with your teacher. We've done a really great job
You
of
won't-
giving it the best.
you won't
we
get
can.
it all, but you might get 75% of what you would have gotten face to face.
And they're doing that.
Well,
They're doing
they're
that
not doing that because they're not participating with the class, because we don't have this technology. We do, we don't, I'm not sure what we have. We have it for our hybrid students in every class in the high school.
And our quarantine kids are still using those, they're using that same, a 2-day kid on a day
Right.
that they're home.
Right.
And the teacher says, here's my Zoom link, you can, you
Right.
know, the quarantine kids
Yeah.
are using the same thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, we're disconnected here. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
The bottom line is that we've got some technology here that we've been using throughout the year that I think we can use to deal with the quarantine kids, that we can use to deal with just a sick kid. Man, I'm just sick today. It's not got to do any COVID. Just I just had a bad day, but I'd sure like to not
Mr.
fall
Murphy,
behind today.
Ms. Murphy, we just gotta get to a point here. We're gonna be here all night because we're,
Fine.
this horse is dying.
Right.
This horse is
Very
beat to
good.
death.
Thank you, Mr. Maker. I think everybody understands my position. We should look at synchronized Fridays for the last 6 weeks of the school year. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Murphy. Mrs. Shana.
I just want to say that I feel that our teachers and our staff are doing such an amazing job with every hoop that we have asked them to jump through. And for it to be said that you don't feel that every teacher is giving 100%, I along with all these teachers take offense.
I just have to say, I support continuing the program. I can understand where Mr. Murphy is going. I just think it's a little bit misplaced simply from the perspective of, as a school board, that's not our lane. Our lane is to provide governance and a general framework for the school district to operate with. And then it's the administrators and it's the professional staff to determine how to best apply our guidance. And that's what you're doing right now. And I don't think, I just know from my professional career, if you tried to stamp out cookie cutter approach to every job I did, I would never be successful. Every teacher, every class, every area, whether it's language arts or mathematics or history or social studies or foreign languages, they all have different requirements, and all the different levels are going to have different requirements. And to sit down and say, we're going to tell them that this is what they have to accomplish is not reasonable and it's not logical. So while I can understand Mr. Murphy's frustration and what he'd like to see happen, it's just way out of our purview as a school board to specifically dictate how we expect that our professional staff and our administration is going to run the district, and specifically Linden High School. So that being said, we have motion and support to approve the resolution to continue with the COVID-19 learning plan, extended learning plan, and we will have the roll call vote. Mrs. Cabell.
Haney,
Yes.
Luck,
Yes.
Montague,
Yes.
Murphy,
No.
Shana,
Yes.
and Maker.
Yes. Next item is the GISD biennial election electoral representative and alternate for the June 7th, 2021 election. Russ?
Okay, the board must select a representative and alternate for the GISD biennial election. And again, we talked about it last board meeting. There's a little bit of a process in place. I think, Steve, you kind of spoke to that last time with your experience there.
You want to say something? Yeah, we had a situation where we had ties, so they had to have second votes. And when the second vote happens, you're released as a board member to not follow the dictate that you came with. So you can vote for whoever you want at that point. So I chose to stick with our dictate, but somebody caved, and so on the second vote, we had a new election. Wasn't a tie anymore. So like I said, it's not a real time consuming event. Usually gets done in about a half hour, 45 minutes. So that's all for me. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Murphy. Before I throw out a motion, I guess, just for administrative purposes, I had offered to be the voting representative and Mrs. Luck would be the alternate. So I guess I need a motion and support to approve the resolution naming Linda's board's representative as Scott Maker and the alternate Sherry Luck for the GISD biennial election to be held June 7th, 2021. Is there motion and support?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, Mr. Kelly?
Haney,
Yes.
Luck,
Yes.
Montague,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Shayna,
Yes.
and Maker.
Yes. Next item is the athletic trainer agreement, Russ.
Thank you. The athletic training service agreement has been reviewed by Mr. Lance Bilal and myself. The scope of responsibilities being provided by NovaCare Rehabilitation remains unchanged. This agreement does include a $1,000 increase in the cost that we pay NovaCare for the services, which the new cost would be a grand total of $23,500. This is a 2-year agreement. And again, I think it's important to note that Caitlin spends a lot of time, Caitlin Saunders, and has for many years as our trainer. And we have not seen a request for increase from NovaCare in over 3 years. It is the administrative recommendation to approve the athletic training agreement as presented.
Thanks, Russ. I need a motion and support to approve the athletic trainer agreement as presented.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions, Mr. Haney?
I have none.
Mrs. Luck?
No.
Mr. Montague?
Nope.
Mr. Murphy?
Sounds like a value that's largely paid for through trainer fees, so it's a good deal for the district.
Mrs. Shane?
No.
And no, I have no questions. So we'll have the roll call vote. Mrs. Kelly?
Haney,
Yes.
Luck,
Yes.
Montague,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Shayna,
Yes.
and Maker.
Yes. We do have one discussion item centered on the last day of school for this school year. Mr. Sisleski.
Thank you. Last day of school for the 2020-21 school year for students is currently scheduled for a half day on Monday, June 14th. After communicating with the Linden Education Association, we are asking to change that last day of school for students from Monday, June 14th to Friday, June 11th. Friday, June 11th would be a full day of school for staff and students. Monday, June 14th would remain a teacher workday at a half a day. And again, really the reason behind it is a half day coming back on a Monday on June 14th could be extremely difficult, no matter what they're doing in the classroom, because again, people are coming, then they're leaving right away. With some of the COVID-related situations, again, for a half day, last day of school on a Monday, let's move it to a full day, which would be that June 11th, that Friday. And again, we have talked to the LEA who continue to support this change.
Thanks, Russ. For discussion, any comments, Mr. Haney?
I have none.
Mrs. Luck?
It makes perfect sense to me. In fact, I know we're kind of bound under contract with regard to school days and work days and, funding and all that, but I wish there was a way that we could even wrap it up a day earlier so teachers could be done on that Friday as well. It's been a rough year for everyone, and it would be nice just to give everybody that little bit of a break at the end, so I support this.
Mr. Montague, any questions?
So you can go to school after a week for the no, I will support that.
Thanks, Jared. Mr. Murphy?
Yes, Mr. Selsky, we're still going to have the 180 days in for the kids, is that correct?
For students, it would actually be 179 instructional days.
Is that a problem?
No, under a pandemic year, if you remember, days and hours that requirement has been eliminated. Basically, what they're asking us is to continue with the expectation of what we had last year as far as educational pacing and progress.
Okay. And the need for bringing the LEA back for half a day on Monday is what?
Contractually, they are contracted with this school year at 185 work days. So that Monday is 185 work days for them.
Okay. So there's no other way around that?
I mean, that's basically a negotiation piece.
And they probably wouldn't want to look at Saturday as the option.
I've never spoke with them about that.
Okay. Would they all have to be in on the same day?
In regards to staff?
Yes. Would they all
Yes.
have to show up on the
Yeah,
same day?
that is part of the approved calendar.
Some couldn't come Saturday, some couldn't.
No.
Okay. So is that something you can reach out to them about Saturday or not?
Yeah, it's possible. You know, I think at this point, because again, we have some other optional opportunities for teachers, from curriculum camp to mandatory PD makeup. That'll take place on that Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the following week.
Okay.
So again, there are pieces based on the contract that we put in place following that last day of school for staff.
Yeah. Well, I don't see any value to bringing students back on Monday, that's for sure, especially for a half day. And hopefully we can have a good solid finish that last week and get as much education as we can get going that week. So yeah, I'm all in favor of this deal. That's where we go.
I'm supportive of it, so thanks, Russ, appreciate it. That's the end of our discussion items. Public comments? Any further public comments? Nothing listed. One public comment, Mr. Mr. Lauer.
Okay. Excuse me. Let me be very clear. I have been here every Friday. I was here when we were here 2 days a week and it was optional to teach from home here. I was here every time. The only thing I was referencing earlier were snow days and how that would be difficult. I have been in this building nearly all year when I was allowed to be. Last year when I couldn't be here, I drove here and I sat outside the band room with a laptop so that I could get on the Wi-Fi, so that I could get materials I needed to teach the students. I am no different than any other teacher. And to be told that we are doing less than our best is an embarrassment to use this platform to say that. We are exhausted. I'm only going to have my prep period 2 days this week because I'm subbing constantly on my prep hour. I didn't have it yesterday. I'm not going to have it again tomorrow. Fridays are huge. It is the only thing that is allowing us to remain sane. It is the only thing that allows us to help the students that are stuck at home. Mr. Murphy, I invite you, so that there is no more disconnect, to come to my classroom and see what I am doing. You can see that, yes, we are using the technology. We are Zooming with the students at the same time that we are teaching. I'm teaching 27 in front of me, and I'm teaching 4 here. And I'm trying to look at their paper there, and I'm trying to get out to walk around and look at someone else's paper, and it is physically and mentally exhausting every day. Do not stand here and say that we are doing less than our best. We are giving everything we have to these kids, to this district, and I cannot take it anymore. It is not a fair assessment. You've been invited, all of you have been invited many times to come to this building and see what we are doing. So before you talk about this disconnect, come on down and see what's going on. And it won't be disconnected anymore, and you will see what these people are putting into these kids in this community. Because I've had enough of it. We are doing the best we can.
Thanks, Glenn. Seeing no further public comment, we'll go around to board reports and announcements. Mrs. Shana.
Oh, you went with me first? Dang it. No, I just want to thank, again, I want to thank the teachers. I want to thank the staff, the kiddos, everyone. I mean, you have gone above and beyond and jumped through our hoops, like I said previously, to make sure that every single one of our kids at Linden Community Schools is getting the education that they deserve. I wish I could come in on Fridays. I wish I could come in on Mondays or Wednesdays. Unfortunately, my work schedule does not allow me to, but I don't feel that the teachers are sitting back with their feet up on the desk, drinking coffee and eating bonbons. I appreciate every single one of our teachers and staff for what they are doing for us, and just be safe.
Thanks, Michelle. Mr. Murphy?
Yeah, there seems to be this misunderstanding that I don't support teachers, or that I think some teachers, the bottom line is that I know some teachers are working incredibly hard. And what concerns me is some kids are not participating to the level that they would if they were here 5 days a week. So whether it's not the staff person's fault that is having that happen to them. That's why I'm trying to get the other force. I want to force the kids to be involved. And then there'll be no question. Because the staff, there'd be no point in me coming to Mr. Lawhorn's classroom because I know he's working his tail off. Dr. George. But can I say that about every teacher? I don't see that.
Yes, you can.
Okay, well.
You can say that about every teacher in our district.
Okay.
Please stop being disrespectful to us and offending us.
My concern is that the kids are, because they're not participating fully, that they're missing out. And I'm not blaming the staff for that, I'm blaming our system for that. Okay? That's what it boils down to. I don't know what to say. Other than that, okay.
Thank you. Mr. Montague, any board reports or announcements?
I'll just chime in my 2 cents on Friday thing. I think one of the things that, my understanding of it, and I've seen some of it personally, is that even if, and Mr. Murphy, I understand your point about the kids being, but I think the problem is that even if you did open that back up, you're still going to have the same issue where you've got a portion of the kids that have either chosen to be virtual on some days of the week, and this would so here's the situation. I think I'm up on a big screen. My sister sent me a picture of it. It's horrifying to see how big my face is in the room there with you guys, so I'm sorry, but my point is, if in this kind of a setting, if I'm a student and I'm having struggling with something, I'm not comfortable, saying that I have a problem, in this forum where not only do I have, I think Mr. Lawhorn said it might be 4 or 5 other kids on Zoom, but also, there's a, my face could be on a computer that others could see me on. I can be comfortable in this setting being able to talk to a teacher one-on-one about the problem that don't understand a concept in math or science. I think Friday is open for that one-on-one time for the kids that are quarantined, where they can have, frankly, I can see it for someone that doesn't want to use that kind of more public open that. So I think, I go back to what Russ said when we chose option 11 as a board. We don't want to go backwards. I think to introduce one more factor in this wheel that we've asked our teachers to continually adjust on, with a handful of weeks left is not ideal. So I would suggest we just try to bump up the rest of the year and back to the more normal year next year. I will say from a board perspective, Dave, we're able to sit in for the superintendent evaluation tool with Collins and that was very informative. There's goes into it, so I'm looking at the process and taking a shot at giving Russ be a part of my first evaluation of our superintendent. So looking forward to that. That's all I have. Thanks, everybody.
Mr. Haney?
Yes, as Jared said, I had the opportunity on April 14th to go through the superintendent evaluation tool training put on by Collins and Blaha. Enjoyed that. It was informative to find out what we are to do to assess. On a personal note, I'm a little disappointed that our teachers just chose to walk out, because I feel as a board, we've been forced to endure some awfully personal attacks. So the suggestion, although delivery might have been poor, Mr. Murphy's suggestion in general is the law of the land and the law of the world, that some people simply work harder than others. I don't feel like he was personally trying to insult them or any of the teachers within our district. I think all of us have a full grasp of what our teachers do for our own individual children. But to walk out like a petulant child, I disagree with. I'm disappointed I could not address them directly. And I don't even know if that's the appropriate time to do it, but the attacks that we have endured on a personal level is repetitive, continual, and often. But yet we are to remain taking the high road. So from that aspect, I'm a little bit disappointed. Like I said, it possibly could have been stated better, but once again, I think Mr. Murphy's intent was not how that was interpreted that warranted that reaction. As far as the disconnect with the invitations, that continually gets thrown in our face as if we don't have daytime jobs. Disappointed in that as well. I believe the reason I did not attend, I stated my intention to come and review classroom time, and I believe my aunt passed away. So the concept that continually gets thrown in our face is that we were invited. I think we had 2 or 3 days to do it before our board meeting. And I think the invitation was 3 to 4 days, as if our schedules aren't already full enough. So once again, we're going to wear that as well. So that being said, obviously I support with what we're trying to do. One last note, as a board, I'd like to applaud us for choosing to put the kids back in school on March 8th. Because had we have waited till post-spring break, our children would have never been in school this year. And to me, that was not acceptable. So, with all the risks that are involved, vaccinations are going on. I'm thrilled that we chose to make that decision when we did. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Mrs. Law?
Yeah, I agree with the comments that Mrs. Shana made earlier on, and appreciating all the work and efforts that everyone has put forth this year. We've said it time and time again. I also agree with all the comments that Mr. Haney just made, and was trying to think of the right way to verbalize that myself. I think we have to remember that we've all been put in positions to make decisions that we never thought we would have to make. And we probably aren't even to a point where we can all agree to disagree right now, and that's really too bad. But just a reminder that respect is a two-way street, and it's unfortunate that I think sometimes people forget as well that the only time that this board has the opportunity to have this discussion is at this board table and in these rooms. So sometimes we might say things that are taken a little out of context, or we might have to share some perspective with one another to gain insights, and that's what's happening here, no different than it would happen at any other time on any other subject. And so I agree that that may be taken out of context or misverbalized slightly. This is our opportunity to have discussion on what's best for these students in this community, and just as a reminder that respect is a two-way street as well. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Sherry. Yeah, I concur fully. And Mr. Murphy, well, as the board president, I will say, while we will disagree on things, I think the response to you earlier was unwarranted and unfair. As a fellow board member, I do support you, and I apologize for you having to be on the receiving end of that, of simply stating what your feelings are and your opinion as a board member. So I have no other comments. We do have a couple events coming up. We have a budget meeting which, for the GISD coming up, which I will be attending. And we have already received the budget packet electronically, so I'll forward that through. I don't think the rest
It
of
was just you and Sherry as the representatives.
Yeah,
But
so,
they did give us, I'm sorry, they gave us the okay to send it out. right?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll go back and double check that, but if it is approved before the meeting, I'll make sure that the budget packet gets forwarded just for your review before the meeting, so. That is all we have. We do have closed session. I need a motion and support to move to closed session per section 8C, collective bargaining strategy of the Open Meetings Act. Do I have motion and support?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote. Mrs. Cavitt.
Hany,
Where's my red light? Yes.
Luck,
Yes.
Montague,
Yes.
Murphy,
Yes.
Shayna,
Yes.
and Maker.
Yes.
And what, oh, can I go ahead and say something? Just for those individuals on Zoom, in a moment, we will put you in a waiting room, and then when closed session, when we